Let's talk about brand personality. It's part of the brand strategy within the strategic marketing playbook. Here are the four building blocks, and you'll see brand strategy and personality and tone of voice down at the bottom. They are very related, but today we're just talking about personality. This is something that you define and you kind of stick with for a while, as with everything else in the brand strategy. So what is personality? It's how your brand looks, sounds, and feels as if the brand was a person. It makes the brand more human and unique, and the best ones are instantly recognizable and relatable. How it helps? It differentiates you versus competition. Many products and services are very similar, and this brand personality helps you stand out. Those human characteristics make you recognizable, which helps you build brand awareness. And the same thing, that relatability increases brand loyalty because people see you as part of their social circle. How it's used, it's both inspiration, but also very much guidelines for anyone who creates messages, visuals, videos, experiences, etc. for the brand. It helps the brand stay consistent because a lot of times the way your brand shows up is not just through a few words or your logo. Here are some examples of brands that you probably recognize. And without me talking a lot about them, you have a sense for who they are, what's their personality, almost as if they were a person. So we use Jennifer Akers' brand personality framework. It's 5 dimensions with personality attributes. Here is the example of it. You'll see, brand personality, she breaks it up, and it goes from a more emotional to more thoughtful. So from sincerity to excitement to competence to sophistication and ruggedness. And they give you also what she started with of the types of attributes, characteristics, and behaviors that each of these tend to have. The list could go on and on, though. This is just a good beginning. So as an example, let's look at some brands. Hallmark with sincerity, Red Bull with excitement, Microsoft with competence, Rolex, sophistication, and Jeep, ruggedness. Not exactly right down the line, all the things that you might describe that as, but pretty close. And that's the point, is you choose. So how do you do it? First, you choose one dimension, depending on how emotional or I call it thoughtful or IQ versus EQ your brand is. Then you choose a secondary if needed, and a lot of brands do this. Then you select attributes from the dimensions. This is just the beginning. As I mentioned, there are lots and lots of words you could use. And generally, they say about 4 characteristics and behaviors. And then you write a statement. So here's an example with Apple. Apple has a non-corporate, artistic, sophisticated, creative personality. So you can see they took things like artistic, which could be imaginative, which is excitement, but sophisticated, which is upper class, charming, that sort of thing, and going with that creative again back to the creative personality. So sophisticated excitement seems to be the types of things that Apple is coming to life with there. Then you bring markers. All markers are things like the look, like logos, colors, fonts, photography, or the sounds, or the sense, or the touch and feel, or the actions of a brand. Those are all markers, other things. So if you look at this wheel here, you can see a nice example of all of the different ways. Now the key here is don't pick them all. It's too much. Pick 1 or 2 things that you think that relate to your brand that make a lot of sense for you. But that is part of the brand personality that helps it come to life. So here's an example with Coke and Pepsi. Let's start with Coke. You hear the 5 dimensions. People would say from one of research study that they chose sincerity, and secondarily, they chose excitement. So how does that come to life? Joyful, happy, sharing, excitement. Then you look at their advertising. Open a Coke, open happiness. Some people call them timeless. Now let's look at Pepsi. On those same dimensions, people would say from this study that they chose excitement first and then ruggedness second. So pretty similar in their first and second there. The excitement overlaps, but the way they do it's totally different. It has a lot to do with sincerity being first with Coke and excitement being first with Pepsi, and then Pepsi adding that ruggedness. So here's an example, smart, youthful, fun, and this is one of their advertising. You can see something totally different. They're clearly in a city, they're younger people, they clearly are not saying the same thing, and some might say that they are more timely. So this is just one example of two brands that have very similar products, but they go about it in a very different way based on their personality. So let's recap. Personality is a deliverable within the brand strategy building block. It's how your brand looks, sounds, and feels as if the brand was a person. You generally choose one dimension as the primary and a secondary if needed. You select attributes from those dimensions, generally 4 characteristics and behaviors, and then you write a statement with the attributes. Lastly, you add markers to show how the brand will look and feel. Well, that's it for personality. Thanks a lot.